Good morning, everyone. My name is De'Antae Ware.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Earl Roberts III.
Good morning. I'm Joshua Hill.
Good morning, everyone. Phil Wallace.
Great. Okay. Do you want me to use it? And you guys can use going toward that one. Okay. So what I thought we would do is sort of fully set or continue to fill out the profile that Ebony started us with, and share not only our two wonderful students, colleagues, alumni, and then on either end, we're flanked by College Now colleagues who are doing the work of helping these wonderful individuals come back, get to, and get through. And we couldn't be more proud of you. We know that going back, it's both humbling, it's scary, it's a big thing to do. It's hard, and our role is to try to help not only boost you but help you overcome obstacles. I mean, even this morning, poor Josh, had hail that's damaged his house. You just never know what is going to literally fall out of the sky and become a next barrier. So thank you again, Josh, for being here. As Ebony mentioned, we are here to support the whole journey. Some of you know we start as early as 6th, 7th, 8th grade, work with students in high school. Josh, I know when we get to you, you'll talk about your experience with us as a top scholar in high school. And then we help students once they go to college. If they've never received a College Now scholarship, they're always welcome to come and work with Phil and his team in our resource center. And we also offer adults scholarships, whether or not they've ever had a scholarship with us before. So maybe I think what we should do is just dive in. Would you be comfortable starting with your story, beginning in Cleveland, beginning from the School of the Digital Arts and going forward? Thank you.
All right. Good morning, everyone. As you all know, my name is Earl Roberts III. I graduated from Cleveland High School of Digital Arts and went straight to CSU. Now, I'm not gonna lie, it was a very good experience and very fun. I will say that. But I was going through a lot, mentally, personally, and financially. Had family problems going on. Couldn't focus in school as much as I wanted to. Besides, if I didn't focus, my mom would get on my behind about that. But it was a lot going on. I wasn't in the right mental headspace for that. So after I did my first year at CSU, I took a year off from school, just focused on myself. I worked at Planet Fitness for like a couple months just so that way I could get my money together. And then around 2024 in the fall, that was when I first registered for Tri-C. At first, I didn't go to Metro on my first year. I went to Eastern Campus, and that's when I met Shanice, one of the Say Yes coaches, one of the very first Say Yes coaches that I met. She was real nice. She made sure that I got everything together, made sure I fill out applications, made sure I do everything I was supposed to do. Also made sure I focus on my time management because my time management sucks. But it's getting better now. I will say that. You live, you learn. But after that, I chose to not make the same mistake again because I'm my my mother had two sons, me and my little brother Evan, who also goes to the same school I graduated from. This is junior year of high school now. I want to be a big role model for him, especially growing up with a single mother is kind of hard to raise two boys. But I have male role models in my life like De'Antae here, and all these people, all these resources, they have really helped me a lot. So during my first year at Tri-C, it was at Eastern Campus. It was calm. It was cool. I wasn't really talking as much because Eastern Campus, it was more like it was a calm place to be at. I will say that. I did make a couple of new friends over there and everything. I'm still in touch with them to this day. Made sure we all made sure we hold each other accountable, make sure we get our schoolwork done. And as much as I hated schoolwork, I still had to get it done. But I wanted to make sure I didn't want to make the same mistake at CSU again. 'Cause I know if I made the same mistake, not only will I fail my mother and my brother, I will also fail myself. And that would be my biggest regret for the rest of my life. So after I did my first year at Tri-C, I made it to merit roll and honor roll on my first year, and I was actually very proud of myself. I didn't do it just for my mom. I didn't do it just for the people I love. I did it for myself. Because if you don't do it for yourself, then what are you doing? So going to 2025, my second year, that was when I went to Metro. And that was when I met Janella, Coach Sherry, Coach Ashley, Coach Cornasia, and De'Antae. And I will say this, they have all helped me when I was going through a very rough patch. And I'm sorry. And it was a lot. I like to help people, but I also learned I can't help people if I don't help myself. So during my year at Tri-C at Metro, they introduced me to a whole lot of events. I made sure I made it to every single one of them. I ran into some old friends I went to high school with, went to the Boys and Girls Club. I also made some new friends over there. And then after a couple months had passed, De'Antae came up with the idea that we should start a peer mentoring group called the Empowerment Circle, which I'm now the president for. And it actually been helping a whole lot of people, but it also helped me because I'm all about mental health. Because I know when you're going through that stage of mental health, sometimes you don't want to talk to people. Sometimes you want to stay to yourself, right? But it's all right to talk to people. And I wanted to bring that out there. So after we did the empowerment circle, we had a couple of great sessions. Last time we had about like 12 to 15 people. Some of them was my brother's friends, and some of them was my friends, and some of them was the people I'll go to Tri-C with. It was actually very helpful. Now, at first, people said that I've been helping them a lot. Sometimes I don't be thinking I'd be giving good advice until it actually worked. But they said that I've been helping them, and sometimes I be down on myself until De'Antae made me realize that the way I talk to people, I can relate to them, no matter if they're from the suburbs or from the hood. And I'm from the hood, but I want to be like a beacon of hope. I want to help people that's around my age or my brother's age, make sure they stay in school, or even if they don't go to school, focus on their goals, whether it's to be a photographer, a landscaper, a singer, an artist, anything that you want to be. And I want to help them do that. And at first, I didn't believe it until I saw my accomplishments. Now, Say Yes, they have also helped me with my time management. They have also helped me through a very rough patch financially, but also mentally. And I would think of Say Yes not just as a safety net, but as a family. They will treat you as a family. They will make sure they will take care of you, make sure they will call and text you, check up on you, see how you're doing, whether if it's around 8 in the morning or 12 in the afternoon. They will call and text you to check up on you. And I would like to end it off with this. If you have a dream or a goal that you want to accomplish, don't be afraid to go to it. Don't wait till the last minute to accomplish your goal. If you do, you may regret that for the rest of your life. So time is very valuable. Thank you.
Thank you, Earl. That was beautiful. Obviously, I can't follow in quite the same way, but I did just want to share before I pass over to De'Antae the incredible work not only that you have done, but that De'Antae and his team have done, have helped us at College Now also think about how we want to position our retention and success services in addition to the money. And so what De'Antae and his team have done at Tri-C, we are now trying to do a little bit more holistically and more globally. And of course, I'm looking at Madeline, who leads our mentoring program. And the mentoring program is continuing to evolve so that we'll also now really build in completion coaches who are going to be doing professional staff similar, not quite the same, but similar to what De'Antae and his team have been doing and are continuing to do. So I just wanted to set the stage, turn it back to you.
Yeah, thank you, Kitty. Again, just introducing myself, my name is De'Antae Ware. I have the pleasure of serving as the director of the SAS Scholars Program at Tri-C. So, as Kitty said, our program provides wraparound support and services to students who receive the SAS scholarship at Tri-C. Earl has been one of our scholars for the last 2 years. It's been our pleasure to have him in our program. As he said, again, just like Kitty, I can't do what he said justice, but I would just add that just thinking about our theme here, non-traditional success stories, and how we're able to provide the support for students. That phrase or that term, I think, is key. In higher ed, we find a lot of different terms to I guess, to categorize students: first generation college student, right? Traditional college student, non traditional college student. But when you think about those things, what they do is allow you to actually work with the student as an individual, right? Because, like Earl said, his story is not like a traditional high school student right out of high school where he went to a 4-year school and he had success, right? He came to Tri-C after taking a year off, and a lot of the things that he went through, right, is not what most college students go through. So for us, it's trying to find individual things that we can help him and assist him with to keep him here. So for young Black males, I think I've tried my hardest just to try to be a good representation for them in the program, right? I think we need to provide more social capital for them. They need to see more individuals like themselves doing and being successful. So that's one of the biggest things I try to provide for our students and for Earl. So I look at myself as a mentor for Earl, but I think our success coaches are the ones on the ground who provide that day-to-day work, because like Earl talked about, there's a lot of things that students go through on a day-to-day. So he can walk into a coach's office and just start talking to them about all the things that he's going through, and they're able to, just kind of listen sometimes, and also maybe interject and step in and help them. So again, it's been my pleasure to serve as the director of the SAS Scholars Program, because we are allowed to really provide intrusive case management to our students. And this relationship I've been able to build with Earl, I think has allowed me to grow, and I've seen a lot of growth in him. So thank you, Kitty.
Thank you both. I just want to add one other thing about what the success coaching does, in addition to the peer mentoring and the opportunities and the exposure opportunities and helping overcome barriers, whether they're on campus or off campus. On campus, I'm thinking about connections to math tutoring, for example, and we have a small but important food pantry and supply pantry, and the ability to provide emergency funds if needed, separate from scholarship dollars. So we're trying to be as holistic as possible. I'm going to pass the mic, or ask you, if you don't mind, Josh, to take the mic and do the same thing, sort of share your story, and then we'll connect with Phil and how you guys have worked together.
I absolutely echo what the folks before me have said about Earl's story. Just incredible. Thank you for your resilience. It's inspiring, I'm sure, to all in the room, but I speak for myself when I say thank you for continuing on. It's not easy, and I know that from firsthand experience, and it's inspiring for me to know that you're continuing through the ranks and being able to find success in ways that people would have counted you out. And I want to use this public platform to not only speak to the folks here, but also to speak to you. You don't know this about me, but I grew up around the corner from you. And as a son of Mount Pleasant and a kid who frequented Zelma and many of the other establishments that makes the Southeast Side so great, it brings me a lot of joy to know that you didn't let your not yet turn into a no. And I appreciate that. And I thank you for sharing your story. Seriously. So, hey, everyone, my name's Joshua, but since we're friends, you can call me Joshua. I serve as Senior Engagement Officer at the Museum of Contemporary Art Cleveland. And it's what I do. It's not who I am. I think that my journey through the past several years has been really interesting, to say the least. The Say Yes program came online, I want to say in 2016, 2017, and I graduated, well, before that. And so but I remember when that program came online, and a lot of its sort of wraparound services, as I understand it, were really informed from the successful model that College Now had implemented, especially with Cleveland schools, among other districts, but I'll speak specifically to Cleveland. So I remember August 15th starting as a student at the Cleveland School of Science and Medicine. And, before long, we were introduced to Kathy Graham and learning about College Now. And of course, it was a college prep environment. So we're like, okay, this seems kind of normal. But then she's like, where do you want to go to college? She's like, hey, I just got accepted to high school 3 months ago. Like, give me some time to sort of figure this out, right? But I'm grateful that that early exposure was so important to College Now. Because it really helped us to be able to understand what the college process was like, what sort of reach, safety, and best fit schools were, so on and so forth. And so I would go on to finish out my academic career at John Hay with, above a 4.0, as well as, in the mid-20s, my ACT score allowing me to become a top scholar within the district. And I was headed to the Jessup Scott Honors College at the University of Toledo as a pre-med student. And, coming from the Cleveland School of Science and Medicine program that was developed 20 years ago by the district and many community partners to produce more doctors and the next generation of healthcare professionals, my prospects were bright. And I had done all of the research. I had joined all the clubs. I had checked all the boxes. I had applied to 45 universities and got accepted to 33. And so ultimately, I would decide on the University of Toledo because I'm the youngest of 7. And having grown up in the neighborhood that I grew up in, although there's a 15-year age gap between me and my oldest brother, my parents were still struggling with student loans that they took out for him to attend 1 semester of college. And I was determined. Although I had strong test scores, I had strong academics, I was still number 23 or 24 in my class. And so that meant that colleges weren't exactly offering full rides. And through, with a lot of help from College Now, as well as being Pell eligible, I was able to build a full ride to the University of Toledo through external scholarships like the Marion Motley Scholarship, through the Cleveland Browns, as well as the Sidney Weingart Scholarship, among others. And so, like I said, went to Toledo with a lot of promise and a huge sense of purpose as well. I knew since 3rd grade that I was going to John Hay, which is when the school reopened under 3 specialty schools, and all the cards were falling into play. I experienced a huge amount of culture shock when I arrived to Lucas County. It's much to what Earl was talking about. I saw a new world where my sort of potential was limitless. And the great thing about that is that I learned how to fail, and I learned how to fail real good. And I'm like, this is something that's unfamiliar to me. It is also kind of attractive. And I started to sort of reinvent myself in all the wrong ways. It wasn't parties that took me out. It wasn't drinking or drugging, although that I know that that's some people's story and no shade to that. But believe it or not, it was availing myself to others. And so what Earl was talking about as far as being able to do it for yourself is so powerful. And it took me a long time to realize that, but I'll get to that. What allowed me to finish my first semester with a less than 1.0 GPA was starting a student ministry on campus. It was starting a club with the local schools in Toledo that would help kids to eradicate health disparities in their community. It was going and volunteering with the Black Student Union. It's like, oh my gosh, all this philanthropy, all this volunteerism, like I want to be a part of that. And then it also was very bad study habits that I developed as a high school student. I had understood that I was smart enough to be able to wait until the last minute to, get all my assignments done. And what I realized before long is that Sunday 11:59 in high school is different than Sunday 11:59 in college. And so I would go through the University of Toledo first semester, finish with a less than 1.0 GPA, and yet and still I was put on probation. The next semester, I said, okay, I'll try again. This time, got above a 1.0, but still less than a 2.0. Still not prioritizing my time, not utilizing it wisely. And then I would go into my second semester hoping to appeal again because I'm really good at interviewing. I can, as long as I can be able to talk to someone face to face, I can help them believe that I'm going to do what I said I'm going to do. The problem was that I didn't believe it. And so I didn't do it. And I was then introduced to failure once again. My second year, I was then not only on probation, but ultimately by Labor Day, so I was already 3 or 4 weeks into classes, the College of Arts and Sciences decided that your enrollment would be suspended for the fall semester. Having an on-campus job, being a student leader on campus, and also being pre-med at the time, I'm like, this one is going to be hard to explain to myself, my family, the Honors College, and the community back home that sent me here a year ago to do something great. By the grace of God, I was able to keep my on-campus job and really use that semester as an opportunity to sort of reinvent and recalibrate. That following semester, I would go on to achieve a 3.2 GPA. And thank you so much. I appreciate that. I would go on to achieve a 3.2 GPA, something that felt a little bit more in my scope. And you would think everything was just smooth sailing from there, but here comes the hailstorm, right? Where now I feel like I've got to hold on academics and I can help people again. And to make a long story short, I got into a really unhealthy relationship in which I was wanting to help this person. And so that distraction led me to another probationary period in school. That probation, I mean, that relationship ultimately ended up in a breakup that would bring an onslaught of depression for me. At a time that was my junior year, because I was now suspended again from the University of Toledo, I enrolled at the local Owens Community College because I was determined, one way or another, I'm leaving here with something. And so Valentine's Day, my depression had gotten so bad that my friend and I agreed to co-parent a dog. And it was a great few months. She lived in a house off campus. I lived in an apartment just slightly off campus. And to make a long story short, the dog that I got to cope with my depression at that time attacked another dog on the apartment property. And because he wasn't registered to my lease, this happened on Friday night. By Monday morning, there was an eviction notice on my door. And one thing about living where I lived in Mount Pleasant and having such strong staple and community is that regardless of how bad things got, there was always a place. And so for the first time in my life, I was without that. And so I was a broke college kid. That was the identity I had taken on. And so for weeks, I was going to work. I would shower at a friend's house who would let me. I was DJing where I could and, trying to figure out how I was going to navigate this new situation. I was evicted May 1st. Finals week started May 3rd. And so you can imagine how those activities went for me as well. So now here I find myself a college dropout twice, and also homeless, and not realizing that I was facing homelessness until 3 weeks in, when I FaceTime my mom from the top of one of the parking garages at University of Toledo, and she goes, "You're out early. What are you doing?" And I was like, "Oh, I slept here." And she was like, "In the car?" And I was like, "Yeah." Thinking nothing. I'm a broke college kid. This is what broke college kids do, right? And she began to lament. She said, "Josh, just come home." And it didn't take much convincing for me to do it. But I of course was thinking about, no, like 3 years ago, I left here with a promise and a plan. I was supposed to be this kid who made it out the hood and went to the honors college and got into med school and became a doc and all of this good stuff. Not to mention, I really only have one good semester to lean back on. So if I come back home and I transfer to someplace, I'm gonna have to start this thing all over again. So let me try to salvage the 3 years that I've had. She's like, "I'm gonna be honest with you. None of that matters. Just come home." And so through my summers, I come home each summer to work at Camp George Forbes, and we through that I was able to kind of work a lot in youth development. And to make a long story less long, there was a provider there who saw how I was interacting with the kids, and they were like, "We want to hire you." And I said, "But I don't have a degree." And they're like, "That's okay. We want to hire you." We set up a meeting with our director. I don't know what you have planned for after this, but you should come work for us. And so I sat down at the time with the director of educational services for the Cleveland Rape Crisis Center, as a 21-year-old, 22-year-old, 21-year-old college dropout at this point, just moved back home. And we had a great conversation at Stone Oven in Cleveland Heights. And he was like, "We want to bring you on and see how we can, utilize your skill set to help young men to be able to connect with our mission a bit more." And one of the things that he said to me that really inspired me to sort of get back on the horse the first time, is he said, "You have all of the," he said, "You have all of the insights. You're just waiting for a few letters behind your name. I'm not going to fault you for that." And I appreciate the power of mentorship, because the power of mentorship doesn't throw the book at you. It sits you down and teaches you how to read it. And I've tried to embody that now as a mentor myself as well. Um, and what I also want to give a huge sort of shout out to in this story is, through it all, College Now does a great job at sort of connecting you with mentors who are already in the career field that you've established. So I decided that I was no longer pre-med, like maybe a year and a, I think it was after the second or third conversation with general chemistry that didn't go so well, that I was like, you know what? Okay, fine. We're not doing this. But I want to give a huge shout out to Dr. Steve Dombrowski, who is still a College Now mentor, for continuing to meet with me, continuing to inspire me, continuing to encourage me in my journey, whether my major was media production, whether it was business or healthcare administration, which I would ultimately finish my bachelor's with. So I've been talking a long time, so I'm going to speed this up. The
Ebony out there.
right. So I moved home, and after I moved home, like I said, I started working at Cleveland Rape Crisis Center, and things were going well. I was making a salary, and I didn't have a degree, so now I'm getting real comfortable. In comes my wife. She's like, "What are we doing about school?" And I was like, "Ooh, about that." And it was that conversation that made me realize, hey, you still have to finish what you started. Came down to the College Now Resource Center, and they helped me to get online with Western Governors University, where I would finish my undergrad degree in healthcare management. And when I looked up and was done with everything, this was supposed to be a year and a half. So I'm still struggling as a college student. As I looked up and I was done with everything, it took me 9 years to finish my undergraduate degree. But once I finished, I hit those last 6 months. I was like, I'm determined this is going to get done. And so what took me 9 years to finish my undergrad degree, the muscles that I learned in all of that student experience would propel me to finish my MBA in 9 months. And so I appreciate that. And so I'm extremely grateful for College Now and the resources that it offers. But also, I'm extremely grateful for the mentorship that has been persistent through this office. A huge shout out to the folks who are new, like my good friend Ebony, but also a huge shout out to the mainstay characters of College Now who have been around for a long time and continue to persist this mission for Northeast Ohioans, especially because I get to be a benefactor of that and hopefully an investor for it in the future too.
Thank you, Josh. Phil, I'm hoping that before we open it up, and I hope there'll be some questions. I mean, this is such a beautiful and humbling and inspiring, and thank you both for just really opening up to share your story in front of all these strangers. It's just incredible. Phil, I'm hoping that you could just talk a little bit about what the adult team does, how we stay connected, kind of undergird some of the things that Josh talked about, and then things that we're continuing to do in ways that we've even expanded since you first started working with Josh.
Sure. So once again, Phil Wallace. I'm the Director of Adult Programs and Services here at College Now. And what my team does is work with folks like Josh and with Earl and others who are considered adult learners. Now, the way we define adult learners here at College Now, those are 19 or over with some sort of gap between high school and college. However, that's how we define it, but that's not always how cleanly folks fit into that. So both of these gentlemen here would not have fit into that, right? They started college right after high school. They graduated high school, they went to college, and then they stopped out, right? And so they're both comebackers. And so when we think about what a non-traditional student is or what a non-traditional student experience is, it's really unique. When you've met one non-traditional learner, you have met one non-traditional learner. And so what my team does is we're out in the community. We're out letting people know about what College Now does, about the services that we offer. We focus on, breaking financial barriers. We focus on breaking informational barriers. We have a variety of means that we do that with. And so we're out doing presentations, workshops, tabling, events, and things like that. We're really meeting folks where they're at out in the community, and I'm really proud of that. But I would say that the bread and butter of what we do, the best work that we do is one-on-one advising. Actually getting folks to come in or do a virtual appointment or come into the office or and sit down with them for half an hour, multiple times to really hear what is their story and what are they facing. As you just experienced, they face a lot. It's not, there's not a one size fits all approach to affecting and impacting these students. But what we really try to do is we try and center them in their purpose. We try to ground them in their purpose because when you're 17, 18 years old, you very well may not know what that is. You know what you've been told. You know what you've been told is the right way to go or what the right pathway is, but you may not know, you may not have had the time to experience that yourself. And some people can thrive in that, and some people, they take more time. I would argue that most people take more time. Whether you were successful or not in college, you probably took some time to find yourself, right? So I think in that regard, it may not be that unique, but I think grounding in purpose and then figuring out, okay, what are those barriers? I think ways that we can affect is through information, through offering financial resources, whether it be through us or via our scholarships or referrals out to others and external scholarships or external resources that are responsible, fiscally responsible, and meant for those who are in need. And so we're familiar with all of those resources. I think that a lot of times that's barrier number one. But I think financial barriers are often talked about. I think what's not as talked about as often are informational barriers. Understanding what is possible, what is available to you in the space that you're at now. And so we speak with so many adult learners who they still look at themselves. I love what you talked about. My identity was a broke college student. My identity was a high school dropout. My identity was someone who didn't like school. I didn't do well in school. And they carry that with them. But how many of us know that when you're 28, you're not the same as when you're 18. When you're 33, you're not the same as when you were 18, right? You may not have been ready. You may not have been at a point where that, but you still look at yourself. When you look in the mirror, you still look at yourself in that same way. And so part of what we do is kind of alerting people like, hey, you're in a different place right now. You're in a different point of your life. Um, have confidence in this. So when we're out in the communities, we're out at tables and we're talking with people, it's like, have you thought about education? No, education's not for me. Why is that? Let's talk about this for a second, right? Oh, I don't want to sit in a classroom. Well, did you know that there are pathways that you don't have to sit in a classroom? You could do HVAC, you can do ultrasound technician. There are different pathways, and so that's what we do in my team. We illuminate pathways, we break barriers, and we make it possible to get them to. And then we send them to De'Antae and to the mentoring and the success side to get them through, right? And so I don't know if that answers your question, Kitty, but that kind of gives a picture of the sort of work that we do from a 30,000-foot view.
No, that answers it perfectly. I was also thinking about sometimes you work with adults who are significantly older, and I didn't know if you wanted to talk a little bit about sometimes the financial, the student loan challenges and the re-enrollment when students are further along, or
Yeah,
adults.
yeah, definitely. So one of the biggest things that we do is what we call student loan rescue. And so for many of those, the folks that we're rescuing, they have completed. So they have completed their post secondary journey, and they're just looking to find some relief because, as we know, there's a lot of issues with the student loan system, a lot of uncertainty, and a lot of it. Right now, it's just very much a mystery that we help to unravel every day. So I think we help those that complete with that, but there are a number of folks who come to us and they are looking to go back to school to finish. But either, I'll mention, you didn't ask about this, but I'll mention two things. Either student loans and paying for student loans prevents them from actually being able to afford tuition, or they have a past due balance at their institution that prevents them from getting their transcript transferred or to be able to actually continue that journey. And so we will help in both of those ways. So we'll help kind of counsel and rescue through student loan, but we'll also talk about past due balances and strategies for tackling those past due balances, including a couple of managed funds that we have here at College Now. If you're a Cuyahoga County resident and you owe $2,000 or less towards a school, we'll look at getting that covered through a managed fund. So there are a variety of ways that we help kind of break, again, those financial barriers. But going back to the student loan piece, it's very much it is front of mind for a lot of people right now. And we've seen a huge influx over the last couple of weeks in student loan rescue appointments with all the changes. And so our biggest piece of advice when it comes to student loans is take action. The worst thing you can do is nothing. Let's start to get you back on the right pathway, whether it be an income-driven repayment plan or looking at public service loan forgiveness. And so are you at the right place of employment that, you might be able to handle that? So there are a variety of ways that we help with that as well.
Thank you. So I think take action is actually a great way to kind of close out the formal portion, and then we hope that there will be some questions. I mean, each of you took action. You took action on your own because of your own internal strength and spending a lot of time thinking about that, but also turning to College Now and being open to College Now and to say yes, helping take the next steps with that. And it's really been a privilege for us, I think, to work with each of you and to work with the thousands of other individuals with whom we get to work every year. So with that, I would love to, I hope there will be some questions. Oh, good. Lissy, please.
Okay, bear with me as I try to articulate what's kind of a tricky question. So I'm listening to your stories and I'm thinking about how you guys had no lack of talent, you had no lack of ability to perform academically, you had no lack of support from your community and the organizations that you interacted with.
didn't ask about this, but I'll mention two things. Either student loans and paying for student loans prevents them from actually being able to afford tuition, or they have a balance, a past due balance at their institution that prevents them from getting their transcript transferred, or to be able to actually continue that journey. And so we will help in both of those ways. So we'll help kind of counsel and rescue through student loan, but we'll also talk about past due balances and strategies for tackling those past due balances, including a couple of managed funds that we have here at College Now. If you're a Cuyahoga County resident and you owe $2,000 or less towards a school, we'll look at getting that covered through a managed fund. So there are a variety of ways that we help kind of break, again, those financial barriers. But going back to the student loan piece, it's very much it is front of mind for a lot of people right now. And we've seen a huge influx over the last couple of weeks in student loan rescue appointments with all the changes. And so our biggest piece of advice when it comes to student loans is take action. The worst thing you can do is nothing. Let's start to get you back on the right pathway, whether it be an income-driven repayment plan or looking at public service loan forgiveness. And so, are you at the right place of employment that, you might be able to handle that? So there are a variety of ways that we help with that as well.
Thank you. So I think take action is actually a great way to kind of close out the formal portion. And then we hope that there will be some questions. I mean, each of you took action. You took action on your own because of your own internal strength and spending a lot of time thinking about that, but also turning to College Now and being open to College Now and to say yes, helping take the next steps with that. And it's really been a privilege for us, I think, to work with each of you and to work with the thousands of other individuals with whom we get to work every year. So with that, I would love to, I hope there will be some questions. Oh, good. Lissy, please.
Okay, bear with me as I try to articulate what's kind of a tricky question. So I'm listening to your stories and I'm thinking about how you guys had no lack of talent, you had no lack of ability to perform academically, you had no lack of support from your community and the organizations that you interacted with. And many things would indicate that college would have been like a happy place for you. And you're probably looking forward to it because it's fun and it's full of all the kinds of things. But we have a lot of evidence that lots of even high performers don't really do that well in their first couple of years in college. So I'm wondering if anything could have made you think, and I want the people who work at college anything could have made you think, maybe there's a path where I work for a few years, grow up a little bit, save some money, and develop a little bit more maturity so that I can manage all the things that come at me. Or would that a conversation crush your dreams and turn you off completely? And so it's like a big question, and I'm wondering if anybody
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, if someone would have presented it that way, it would have absolutely crushed my dreams.
Okay.
I'm fortunate to have been a person who worked through college, and so a couple things come to mind for me. When you go to a college prep environment like Cleveland High School for the Digital Arts or Cleveland School of Science and Medicine, this isn't an adult prep environment.
Yeah, right.
Right. And so you have this sense of urgency and immediacy when it comes to college. And what that means is get it done no matter how long it takes. But I appreciate that perspective because as I've mentored other young people as well, that's something that I've offered as well. And I'm grateful to programs like the Advanced Technology Academy at Tri-C, who is able to offer schooling and working alongside one another. But to answer your question in short, it would have absolutely crushed my dreams. But I think that packaging and framing makes it work together as well because I think about like the substitute teaching as well as the after school programs, Cleveland Rape Crisis Center that, I ended up having to do in between school, if you will, as sort of a fallback plan, how much more powerful it could have been if it was just all part of the plan nonetheless.
That's a great answer.
I would like to piggyback off that. For that will also crush my dream because graduating from a college prep high school, I was such in a rush to get to college. I was happy, excited, when I enjoyed the college life, and everything. Thinking college is gonna be just like the movies. Boy, was I wrong. It is no joke. But what also made me realize, because I wish I could have done this sooner, because now I'm a peer influencer for the help us here at the counseling center at Tri-C. Been working there for a few weeks now, and it also helped me realize that time is very valuable, and if you take that time for granted, you're not going to get that time back, no matter what you want to do. So to answer your question for that, that will also crush my dream, but also what my mom will say that sometimes be annoying me: failure is your best friend, because as long as you fail, you will learn. As long as you learn from your failures, that will continue to bring you to the success that you want to be.
Um, I also want to, and it is something that we think about, Lizzie. I think we, what I would caution against, because I think your question came from a good place, and I think oftentimes we're as a society, we will think about what is the solution. We'll see a problem and we'll think, what is the solution? And really, what we need to be asking is, why is this happening? And so when we think about it, your question was very pointed. High achievers, high performers at CMSD and other urban districts across the country going to traditional post-secondary experiences and not doing well. I think it's important to say, why is that? What are the tools that are being given in other sort of maybe even suburban school districts or other types of environments that are not happening, that may not be happening in the school districts that we're referring to here. I think understanding what tools and resources are available. Do the folks from CMSD, the students from CMSD, go to these institutions and understand the value of a network and social capital, and understand the value of utilizing your resources across campus? Do they understand the value of internships and hands-on experiences? Do they understand? The answer to a lot of these questions is no. And so you can prepare someone academically for college, but as someone who has over a decade of experience, before coming to college, I had over a decade of experience in student affairs and higher education. I can tell you firsthand, you can prepare someone academically for college without preparing them for the experiences that are actually going to make them successful. And so before I would say two things, a long way to say two things. We should be focusing on pathways. We shouldn't, I think too much boxing in happens right now in society today. Oh, you're from this community, have you thought about the trades? Or you're from this community, have you thought about it's funny, if you go to Rocky River, you can be whatever you want. If you want to be a doctor or a lawyer, or you want to be a nurse, or you want to be an artist, or you can do whatever you want. But if you're in CMSD, it's, have you thought about nursing? Have you thought about the trades? I think that's a problem. I think we need to approach at the K-12 level these conversations, particularly in urban school districts. We need to approach these conversations of, let's think about the pathways, all the different pathways that are available to you right now. So I think number one, understanding what pathways are available and making that clear ahead of time, I think can help a lot. And then I also think when they're in these experiences, these school districts and these, I think it's really helpful to say, here's what you need to expect. You can't be the 11:59 p.m. on a Sunday high school student when you go to college. That was something that Joshua, a high performer, didn't realize. Why is that? Right? So I think, again, going back to my original point, what you said comes from a good place, but we're putting a solution to a problem that we perceive that may not actually be the problem.
De'Antae, did you want to add anything to that, or
No, I think he did a
you
great job.
covered it?
Yeah.
Thank you, Lizzie. Any other equally wonderful and provocative questions? Please, Janet.
You all have been on an incredible journey. You've had a lot of obstacles, you've had some successes, and I want to applaud you for where you are in life right now. That takes a lot of grit, guts, everything. I heard a common theme during your journey, and it's about how you had support along the way somehow. So, can you tell us what really set the tone for you all to be able to just sit out in front of a stranger or someone and just tell your story while you're going through that process to get help? It's not always easy to just sit out and talk to someone and say, "Oh, God, I got these issues." So, what really set the tone for you all to be able to express yourself in an authentic way and then get help along that path?
Well, for me, I've always liked the type. I've always been the type to talk to people, but when it comes to like certain issues, personally, I've always been the type to like stay to myself. And the only person I really had to talk to was either my mother, my grandfather, or the male role models in my life. But during my time at Tri-C and Say Yes, De'Antae told me that it's all right to talk to people. It's all right to talk to a stranger and stuff, because you may never know that I can relate to that person, and or also they could be going through the same thing you going through, just worse. But as long as you survive through your situation and adapt, you can evolve into the more better person that you want to be.
I want to raise two things. De'Antae mentioned something earlier, this model of intrusive coaching. What um what Earl is talking about as far as being able to mask what's actually happening, especially when you're a bleeding heart and you want to see your community thrive and you feel this sense of responsibility and urgency to go and help others. It's easy to shut down your personal needs. So I want to highlight the intrusive and you especially naming that, right? This intrusive coaching that's like, hey, I know you said you're fine, but tell me what that actually means. Let's map it out and lay it down. And I appreciate that kind of mentorship and when those things present themselves. For me personally, talking to strangers has been something that I was sort of growing up to that I grew up learning. But I want to share just a really quick story of how talking to a stranger really changed my life. My first job was at Zelma George Rec Center at the roller rink, passing skates and tucking laces. And I did that all through high school. There was a person, and Mount Pleasant is a predominantly black neighborhood. It's no secret. And there was this older white woman who would come and skate, and my colleagues would always give her a hard time, but I was always just extremely pleasant. Never knew her name. She never knew mine. But we, always tried to make sure that like we spoke to one another. Hey, what do you need? And this woman was like 75 years old and a beginner skater. So my assistant manager was especially giving her a hard time because she's like, oh, she's trying to hurt herself and sue us. Like, well, we ain't got no money. Like, and so we to make a long story less long, I told you I was applying for all of those scholarships, and I got called in for a scholarship that I was not approved for. And then I went to an office downtown for the interview, and they're like, "Hey, could you wait a moment? The owner actually wants to be in on your interview." And I was like, "Okay, sure." And there were like two people who went in front of me. Now I'm getting irritated. But lo and behold, I was patient, and I sat at the table, and in comes a woman. I'm like, "This woman looks extremely familiar." It turns out it was Sydney Weingart, the owner of a Fortune 400 company, incredible artist and businesswoman who I had no idea that that's who this person was. And she's like, I picked your application because it says Elma Watson George roller skating facility on your resume, and I figured that with this type of resume, it had to be you. And so for me, because I never know who I'm talking to, what's the worst that can happen from a conversation or saying hello? And so I'm grateful to have grown up in Cleveland. I was talking to Kitty earlier, this big city and small town that allows for us to make those connections with other folks. But again, I want to highlight that intrusive coaching and understanding that even if someone does push back on that, like, that's fine. But most times for people like Earl and me, from what I've gathered from this conversation, that's really going to change a life, because what it says to a person who is attuned to seeing everything and everyone else, it says to that person, I see you. You know, so I appreciate the question.
And we
Yeah.
appreciate all of you. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
And I just want to add to that. One of the things I appreciate is when I have Earl on panels, he doesn't just bring up my name. He brings up almost every success coach that we have on our team. And one of the things and one of our mottos is that even though a student may be assigned to a coach, every student is coached by everybody, including myself as the director. And I think what that also allows the students to develop personal relationships with each coach, right? So just to your point, Earl doesn't share everything with me that he shares with Sherry. She's like, I would say, the mom or the aunt of our team. Then he has a relationship with Shanice, and he has a relationship with Janella, his success coach. So he has all these personal relationships, and I'm sure he shares different things with each and every one of us, and specific to probably how we came to him, right? What we brought to him, the things we talked to him about, and all of those things. So I would say one of the great things about college now as a whole is we really have a lot of passionate folks who work for us, and I feel like I'm always working around somebody. Everybody knew Earl was coming into the office, and I had 3 or 4 people asking me, does Earl know how to get here? Does Earl know how to find his way? Does Earl need anything? So even if I wasn't here, I know Earl would have found his way here. He would have been successful, and he would have felt welcome. So that's one of the things I love about college now, is the passion and the compassion that everybody has for our students and our work that we do.
Thank you all for being here. We really appreciate it. And you guys are the best. Thank you so much.